I've been recording for a while, actually, but that's all right.
That's
It's on for you in the edit.
The pre-show.
generally not a problem.
Pre-show. That's the gold right there. Alan Partridge banter.
But it's only your perspective because no one else is recording, so it's just you talking about Alan Partridge.
Genuinely, like, I feel like this might be the next good place for Austin. This might be the next rabbit hole for him to go down. It's just like the history of Alan Partridge, this 20-year-old comedy character.
Troy,
I'm still,
are you familiar with Alan Partridge?
Absolutely. Did you watch The Trip? Either the first or the second
I
one?
really want to, but I haven't.
Those are fun, yeah.
Yeah.
My God, he's brilliant.
It's Coogan, yeah.
And it's this wonderful self-deprecating, but even the second one is even more like poignant and surprisingly good about Alan Partridge. I mean, I loved him, and you know.
Rob Brydon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just
I have a photo of me and Rob Brydon when I was like 50, and if I had it to hand, I would send it to you right now.
Pull it off the bookshelf.
I'm about to say it's probably on the bookshelf.
That's just
Did you, Troy? Did you ever see Philomena with Coogan and Judi Dench?
Dame Judi Dench, please.
With the Dame Judi Dench. She plays a woman who, late in life, reveals she had a kid that was taken away by like nuns or something when she was a teenager. She had a marriage, and she had a child as a kid, and then never told anyone for like 70 years, and then finally
this is Chinatown.
and then finally reveals it, and he plays this journalist who's basically trying to help her track down whatever happened to this kid. And
when did this come out?
It's so good. I really liked it. It's got some really affecting things in it, and it's definitely a drama, but there's this one great moment that sold me on it. Where they're in, she plays this woman who, these nuns, really, really basically screwed up her life, by taking away her kid. And but she remains very religiously devout. And there's this great scene that was in like, I think Steve Coogan went on like the Daily Show or something, to promote it. And they showed this clip, and that sold me on the film, where you see the two of them in the car together, and she goes, "Do you believe in God?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, it's just going to have to be, I guess, the dependent of how you define God. And I mean, different people have believed different things at different time." And then it gives this long, meandering, like waffling, and then it ends with kind of this unsatisfactory, like, "So I guess it just depends. How about you?"
As
and she
most
goes,
religious debates often do.
"Oh yeah." And after going through this whole song and dance, "How about you?" And she's just, "Yes."
Based on the description of that, I would not have guessed it were a comedy.
No, it's not at all.
Okay.
I could see it being in the same way that The Trip, especially the second one. My favorite scene, of course, that everyone was quoting from, and what got me hip to the movie was in The Trip was them sitting there doing their Michael Caine.
I've seen that too. I've seen that particular clip.
It was.
But the reason that I'd asked if you were familiar with Alan Partridge, Troy, was because like that's one of those things that I would always wonder, if I were to show it to an American, would they find it funny? And I have that struggle with like a lot of Australian stuff where I'm like,
Summer Heights High was like, I feel like you really have to understand Australian culture. I was reading something today, and it's like, it's not about translating the word, it's about translating the culture. And in order to fully understand it, you really have to translate the culture. And I feel like I grew up watching, like my parents were weird. And so we watched a lot of like the foundational BBC things like Faulty Towers and Are You Being Served? And I watched, when people started talking about Dr. Life of Brian,
Brian.
The classics.
the originals.
And my parents would be like, when people started getting hip to Doctor Who, I was like, that's like the cheesiest sci-fi show ever. It's like one thing up from Lost in Space. And I didn't realize what they had done with Doctor Who until much, much, much later. So I mean, like I grew up watching this stuff, so I kind of have a foundational knowledge, or I can understand ad hoc the culture that is, British humor.
But do you know
the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? Pretty sure.
Do you know Irwin Allen, the master of disaster, was behind the original Lost in Space? Do you know who he hired to score that show, the original.
I'm gonna say, knowing you, it was probably Leonard Bernstein.
No, his one and only film credit is On the Waterfront. He looked down on film scoring. He was not a fan.
Really?
Yeah, after doing On the Waterfront, he goes, "I'm never doing that again." He was also resentful.
Well, I got an Oscar.
We've all had projects like that in fairness, haven't we?
Right? This is easy to get awards.
Well, he was also resentful of the fact that West Side Story won like 10 Oscars, but not for its music. It was nominated, of course, but it didn't win.
Okay, then it's going to be not John Williams. It's going to be.
It is.
No way.
Yep, he was still Johnny Williams at the time.
And
but
Johnny Williams in his band.
I feel like you need to write the biography of John Williams that I can
could.
put on my bookshelf.
Please.
And then Troy
actually-
and Alanah can do the audiobook version.
Brilliant.
it makes me realize I don't think that I don't
No one's
know
ever
that
done a
anyone's ever
biography?
written like a proper kind of authoritative.
I also think that he's going to be
Kickstarter,
like.
come on.
John Williams is going to be like Methuselah. He's just going to live to be, or like be like Enoch, and he's just going to disappear to vapor. He's never really going to die. He's just going to like disappear into the mist. Yeah, he'll just ascend. Speaking
Obi-Wan
of
style.
I mean, he's
Eddie
our
Van
last connection to
Halen.
that era.
Eddie Van Halen
I didn't realize he had cancer.
for 20 years. I knew about the hip, and I knew that he had cancer, but again, just kind of
20
Yeah.
years. Sounds like the cancer had him.
I mean,
Fair
that's
play. He fought.
this is.
Long-time relationship.
Yeah, like we talked about this, and someone, Wolf said he had a long and arduous battle with cancer, and I was like, what an interesting way to phrase that. We ended up jumping on talking about it yesterday, and like, he's an icon. It's an icon. You're no longer a person. You're an institution. Like you're in the 2020 terms, you're a meme at this point.
yeah. I was
right?
gonna say when you become a synonym for a thing, like if you're with a band and you're like, let's just Van Halen this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that would actually mean something to a guitarist in a band in the same way that like composer to composer, you can say, let's Philip Glass this or something. And it's like, there's certain people that just become a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't doubt that one. You can't
No,
doubt
I'm just
that
saying,
one.
like, I thought you were going to go a little bit more like everyman and be like Beethoven or Mozart or whatever.
No, but that's the thing. I think it's actually more obvious what I mean if it's Philip Glass, for what it's worth. I chose carefully.
I do. No, you always do.
But actually, yeah, there's a composer, sort of acquaintance and a friend. So presumptuous to call him a friend, but a composer acquaintance that I like, Mark Shaman, who's a legend. He's written a lot of Broadway stuff, and he worked with Trent Parker and Matt Stone for a while. And he's just had the most amazing life working with all these different people and icons. And he wrote a little tribute to Van Halen where he said he was helping in 1987. I'm reading this from his Instagram because I just thought this was so cool, where he said, I always love this about people like this. I didn't know this about Van Halen, where he said in 87, he was helping with the band on SNL when Van Halen's wife, Valerie Bertinelli, was hosting. I was the music guy writing staff that year. And Wednesday we did a read through of the submitted sketches, and I was at the piano, and there was a sketch that called for the classic keyboard part of Jump to be played. And so I played it. Van Halen looked at me, and he had just this huge, giant, lit up smile like a kid on Christmas morning. He seemed still, even at that point, excited by all of this. And I just love whenever you come across stories of someone who's like fully a legend. And then when you hear those behind the scenes moments and they're just like, wow, about what's going on, and they're not sort of above it or
Yeah.
they're
Enjoying it. They're living it, right?
And the way that they described it too, the grinning guitarist, I was like, yeah, man, that's why he and David Lee Roth were so good, is they were just like having their kids having the time of their life. I remember something similar to that, seeing
looking at pictures of him right now, and it's just tons of photos of him, even in his older age, just smiling. It's really cool.
Yeah. I saw Roger Waters at the Bowl.
oh, nice.
And that was my first concert at the Bowl, actually. It was this fever dream of circumstance. But I remember looking at, I had met Roger Waters the night before, just by happenstance. And he was kind and gracious. But watching him on stage and him looking out at the audience as people are singing, in mass, his lyrics and his music back to him, and he looked like he was just shocked that anyone was in the audience. And it's the same thing you're talking about, Austin. You're like, I can't believe you guys know this song. You're like, it's a seminal record. Like, everybody knows this. If you even heard the two words Pink and Floyd, you equate them with Dark Side of the Moon, or at least The Wall.
Yeah.
So it's just like people like that their contribution to art and contribution to the world is so indelible. I have just such an admiration for, and especially when they maintain their humanity and their humility throughout that process. I really, that's what I aspire. It's not that I just aspire to accomplish great things like they do. I want to accomplish it the way that they did, and with the integrity,
the attitude,
the attitude. Yeah.
It's a tremendous loss. But I don't think it's the first time I said it on this podcast this year, but cancer's a real piece of shit. We're not
Just
a fan.
fuck off, cancer.
We would like it to fuck off. That would be super nice. And yeah, sort of to your point there, Trey, I wanted to bring up the Billie Eilish thing. She was pretty profusely made fun of for not knowing who Van Halen are. With some people saying like there's no excuse for young people.
Wasn't that a while ago? Wasn't that like a controversy like
December
maybe a
last
year
year,
or
I
two
think?
ago? Yeah. I remember
20
that.
years ago that was, it
Basically.
feels like, right?
That excites me. That doesn't insult me.
That's
That makes me
amazing. That
go,
tells us the
Oh.
culture's moving. Culture
not only
is
that, but just
moving,
like, come
right?
here, put some headphones and
Yeah.
listen to
See it.
OU812. And
Have
it's
you
like,
seen
I
the
was gonna
YouTube
say-
channel of the two brothers? I think they're brothers at least. Who just experienced music
dude.
for the first time.
yes.
So good.
I don't know if we've spoken about it before, but like it's so fun to watch. Like someone
Was it
listening
Phil
to a famous
Collins?
song before.
Like
Yeah,
the-
it was in the air tonight. They were like,
Yeah.
oh!
Yeah.
It's like- and that song's about his divorce. It's just like this dirty, gritty rock song. That song inspired more drummers. Like that song alone is what made me pick up 2 drumsticks and beat the shit out of pillows just waiting. I couldn't play anything else, but it would have gave do. That's what made me want to play the drums.
Yeah, all kinds of awesome. So I guess
that thing you're describing of like the weird cultural elitism of needing to, you need to know all the things I know lest I not take you seriously. I think is missing what, I mean, you just both, or all of you, kind of nailed it with that. The joy of discovering those things, to me, if I had one superpower, it would be to give myself amnesia, to go back and like hear certain things for the first time, or watch certain movies again, or play certain games, or read certain books for the first time again.
Oh yeah.
Like that to me would be, if I could snap my fingers and just forget Star Wars, and just
Which
like,
one?
clean slate it.
Episode 1.
same.
Yeah.
With you on some of those.
Phantom Menace. I just need it again.
Oh.
Yeah,
I could
it to me, it's the best professor I ever had was my college music history professor, and this was one where hundreds of students had to take this class of all music major types, composer, all the performance majors and singers and blah blah blah, and the whole point of his class was to like make sure that everybody leaves this program kind of on equal footing in terms of their knowledge of the basics of the historical kind of classical tradition, at least the Western and the U.S. Specifically, and but it's a lot of materials taught over 4 semesters. It was a two-year class, and we would always every so often we'd come across like another one of those war horse like Beethoven's Fifth, like things that just, it's hard to imagine someone could audition to get into a university music program and not have ever heard this piece. But the whole point was to say, let's not presume anything. So we're going to cover everything that sort of really lays the foundation of this art form. And so every now and again, a Beethoven's Fifth, a Mozart's Requiem, the Planets, Rite of Spring, these pieces would come up in between, more obscure ones, but he would always ask the class, okay, don't be shy. Who here, today we're going to talk about Beethoven's Fifth. Who here has never heard this piece? And, it's a lecture hall of 500 students, most of whom are 18 and 19. So at first it's like, you wouldn't dream of raising your hand.
I
But
would put my hand up.
Yeah, he
In that room.
he made it clear, like, I'm not judging you. I'm just curious
Some
to
big
know.
guy in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
It can feel that way. For sure.
No,
Conductor's
for sure,
sticks, man. They're big and heavy. Like, they can do some damage.
this was his genius, though, because he really was good at kind of taking the temperature down and being like, it's all good. And he had taught at NYU since 1968. Alan Menken had been his student. And so he goes, raise your hand. So, like, out of 400 kids, like maybe 20 on a piece as seminal as Beethoven's Fifth, for example. And there's like 20. And of course the whole class is looking around to see whose hands are these. And he would look at those 20 and he'd go, I envy the experience you're about to have. And then he'd push play. And it was just like everybody kind of vicariously got to listen through their fresh perspective. And it was like, holy shit, I've heard this before, but I kind of haven't until this moment. And it was just, this guy just effused a love of this material, not to mention that, multiple decades of teaching the same thing. And he seemed just as excited to share it that day as probably since 1968. And I just thought it was amazing.
We've been doing this like movie screening things on Saturdays where every movie is chosen because somehow organically we'll talk about, it's like, well, it's like in Shawshank Redemption. Someone goes, I've never seen that movie.
I haven't seen that
what? Huh?
Haven't seen it.
Oh my God. Mike, you have, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like 50 times.
And
I brag about it. Oh.
Yeah, I've seen that movie like, yeah. No,
That's
like,
exactly what
I'm kind of mocking myself because I think what's interesting with Shawshank is, and I don't know, Troy, you might disagree with me, but like,
Maybe.
it's kind of it's the best 7 out of 10 movie ever made. Like, it's not, I think on a lot of levels, it's not a great, I don't think of it as one of the classics. It's actually, if you look at the history of it, like, it did really badly in the cinema and just blew up because of home video. Because it is just one of those movies that people go back to. It is one of those movies that you can't just watch once. You're going to watch 50 times in your life.
So get ready.
That was why I laughed. It was not a smug arrogance that I'd seen a movie. That was
interesting. I can totally understand it because I see what you're saying. It's like it performs and it does what it does very well. It's actually a wonderful. Right. Yeah,
I just looked up the box office and
did do well.
Worldwide gross was $28 million against a $25 million budget.
Whoa!
I thought it was because it was also nominated for.
Is massively successful.
It's a very prestige.
It was on the tail end of VHS, so it did really well on VHS. And then when DVD came in, it's like I gotta have a DVD of Shawshank. Of course I have.
They Grand Theft Auto'd it. GTA
Exactly.
5, you just gotta get it on all your platforms.
Across that generation, absolutely. Yeah.
I
recently supporting.
It's fun. the things that I enjoy about that is people's different takeaways. Like someone said about Shawshank, it's like it's the only. It's a rarity because it's a wonderful movie about a platonic relationship between two men that is not a comedy. It's like we'll do Wedding Crashers and we'll do all these movies that two bros, but as far as like two men that are just friends that genuinely do everything they do out of love for each other, I was like, I've never looked at Shawshank that way. I've viewed it as a man escaping prison. I've viewed it as
I didn't even know that.
Spoilers.
I was going to say, if you asked me what I thought it would be about, I would be like, prison film. Maybe somebody dies in prison, and it's sad. I think maybe, but that's as far as I go.
To me, it's just so great.
It's one of those movies that kind of has everything.
It does
everything movies, right?
Like it's heartwarming. It's got drama. It's got.
It also has one of the single most pervasively imitated scores.
Yeah.
Thomas
Newman, right? Ah, see.
Yep. That was the score. That was the one that kind of made him go from relatively known to to some
Johnny Williams and Tommy Newman.
It's also
he just that score. There's one scene in particular. There's this one particular cue that's just this very atmospheric piano that was in every temp track, and every composer still to this day at some point or another is asked to copy this cue. Because it's so unobtrusive. You can put it against any dialogue and anything, and it just adds something magical. And he created a genre of music that he himself has then had to fight to escape because he's been asked to do it so many times. But he's a real distinct talent, and that score was the one. It was that one, and then a couple years later, American Beauty. He did these pair of scores that are just
Ping!
like, yeah, it's just
Ping! It's like what David Fincher called the torn movie poster era.
The torn movie poster era.
Basic Instinct, Fatal Attraction.
Yeah, right. With the like
Fugitive
slash
is like
imagery.
this slash, and I was
yeah.
like, he was like, there was one person at like Universal, or whatever, and it was like that created this genre of torn movie posters. And I was like, holy shit, that's right.
That's so funny.
Very particular era.
Mike, congratulations on a launch
Yes.
well made.
Yeah, your hair
First,
looks tamer.
Hi everyone, welcome to
I
Play
mean,
Watch
that's
Listen.
Mel from pulling.
Right.
Yes, hello.
I'm Alanah. This
Oh,
is
Jeff.
Mike, Haas, and Troy. We might have a shorter episode today. It's been a real week, and I know Troy has to run at some point. But Mike, you released
Hello.
a video game.
We did.
How'd that
Successfully.
Yeah, it's kind of a hit, which has led to lots of fun chats today. And I've been distracted. Apologies for my typing while we're talking. It's incredibly rude. Yeah, it's
notice.
going very well. I think it's that's cool, but I'm British. I meant to assume
That's
that
right.
everyone's
Yes,
constantly.
I appreciate your apology.
I understand you hate me. Forgive my success.
You being on this podcast is a charity act on our part, basically. It's
Yes.
and
I'm
before
doing you
you
a favor right now.
Consequently, this is the success of Mike Bittle's game, and this is his last episode.
Yeah, I'm done. I've got what I needed out of this podcast. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rami Ismail.
I mean, he's got lots of time on his hands at the moment.
true.
He's
Worth,
chilling out. He's chilling out.
worth highlighting
Yeah.
before you dive in, though, as I was reminded by Alanah's snippet of my right hand on Instagram. It was exactly 1 year ago, almost like yesterday, I think, that we did our New York Comic Con panel
Yes.
that birthed this very thing.
Yeah.
The birth.
It was the 5th. It was Saturday the 5th, wasn't it?
Can you believe
Yeah.
that
Something like that, yeah.
that was a year ago?
No, it feels like a different lifetime, doesn't it?
It really, really
Really
does.
does.
2 months ago to me feels like a different lifetime.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that recently, about the
Who are you
perception
people?
of time
What
this
year am
year.
I?
And like, just how much I've only seen my own face. It's just very...
In fairness, you live in a house of mirrors, so that
Yeah,
really
Take down the
Everyone's asking
posters,
for
you
it.
know?
You know?
it's true. In any case,
Yes.
I don't mean to take us off of Mike's debrief.
No, that's cool. Well, that's my next job is in. Well, this will by the time this goes out, it'll be out there. But in 25 minutes, I have to remember to hit the tweet button because we're announcing the retail release of John Wick X.
Exciting.
On everything.
Wait,
So
wait,
we're
what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that game did all right as well. So that's going to. So it's out on PS4 and Epic Store right now, but we're doing Steam, Switch, Xbox, and we're putting in boxes and yeah. So
Cool.
it's coming out. I don't know the
25
dates
minutes.
off the top of my head, but yeah. In 25 minutes, I've got the tweet ready to go. I have to hit enter on that tweet, so I have to just keep an eye on
Where's
Your own
Publisher will be
social
disappointed.
media
Hit enter on
manager.
that.
Hit,
Yeah.
hit
Exactly.
enter on the tweet. You
That's
can
what it
schedule
is.
The
tweets
return
you
button.
want to wear.
Like
You could schedule them, but that always goes wrong for me. I always
fair.
end up saying them too early, and I get in trouble. So I just
I just picture you with like this cartoon dynamite plunger that activates your Twitter.
or just a switch.
That's right.
Like Eddie Van Halen and
Hey.
who else were we talking about? Eddie Van Halen and Roger Waters. Is there something that surprised you about? Do you kind of feel like I can't believe that people like this game? I can't believe that people are playing this game, or did you kind of know going in? It's like if people will just play this, they'll love it.
with Solitaire.
Yeah.
I think the playtesting was the best we've ever had. Like, definitely there were a lot of very early signs that like the game was good. The first round of playtesting, we had a terrible tutorial initially. I mean, every tutorial always sucks when you first start. Like it's always a couple of playtests before your tutorial gets good, or at least for
Say people, why don't you get this?
yeah. But like other than that, we were definitely getting from like day one really good playtests. We fixed the tutorial. We knew that was solved. We knew it was good. We weren't sure because it's just our games are always completely different from each other, so we just didn't know if there was an audience there. Turns out a lot of people played Solitaire as kids and kind of like the idea of a more advanced grown-up Solitaire. So
With Greg
yeah.
Miller.
It's not just
With Greg Miller.
it's
And I
not
love
just
that because the
advanced.
reaction to that's been excellent because a lot of people were a little sniffy and like, Greg's not an actor and all this stuff. And actually then people play it and they go, oh, he's fun. Like he's doing a good job here. So yeah, he's being the guy in the chair. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, no, it
For
was.
you. I'll come for you in the night, Greg. I'll come for you.
Yeah,
in the
you're
night.
gonna. It's gonna be. I'm gonna make sure we nominate him for the BAFTAs just so that you're gonna have it together. Like, it's a
And
great
the award
performance,
goes to.
but also
I'm not
like,
surprised. Greg Miller for everybody for.
Yeah, it's Greg Miller.
Conspiracy.
Obviously, it's Greg Miller. It's the performance of the year. But no, it's been. So it wasn't. It was. We knew we had a good game. What's been really fun has been watching just that level of engagement with it, and also just it's outselling everything we've ever done before. So it's kind of interesting to watch that curve as well, and we're learning a lot. And we're honestly at that point. There's a certain point, and this might seem a bit abstract, but essentially there's a point once as a developer you're aware that your game is going to make enough money to like pay your staff, which is where we're at. Like it's doing fine, it's on course to do all that, which is the important thing. At that point it almost becomes abstract that you're like, oh, these numbers are really interesting. I wonder what's causing that. And oh, there's a spike. Like it stops being real money. You stop looking at it like your bank account, because I mean, you'd go mad if that was actually how you looked at sales data. Mm-hmm. So it's actually now it's just mainly me and my business partner Alexander just nerding out at like, that the Chinese players are coming in at this time of day, and that's interesting. And like, is that because we made a specific logo for that version of the game in that country?
Or I love
how's
data.
that impacted?
Hell yeah.
Say again, sorry.
I love data. Like that's like a thing that's
It's
a big
just
part of my
so
job.
much of
Is
it.
like, why are people like I've had this conversation with this show where it's like we're not trying to make money, but I'm like, yes, but in my the way that my producer brain works is I still want metrics of success to track, and why have they tracked that way? I find it really fun.
Is
And
that
it's
so
the
that it
same,
can be
like, honestly, it's a lot of
duplicatable?
the same stuff.
Or is that so you could replicate that, or do you feel that is only indicative of that game? Like, or do you take that information and go, okay, so for the next game we know that this was successful, therefore we need to replicate this thing in the next game, or do you think it's only wholly to that game?
There's lessons there for sure. We all. I think the big thing for me with every game is I always go into every game being like, this is a hit-driven business. The numbers won't make any sense. It's all luck and challenge, and who knows what the world's going to want right now, and blah, blah, blah. I go in with that attitude on every single game, and about this point with every game, so we're just over 24 hours now, it's like, oh yeah, we're just doing that game times whatever. Like we're just, you go, oh, everything is really predictable. The sales curve you do, so basically like when you launch a game on Steam, and you a little bit later, you can actually see that like hour by hour. So that data is so much fun to look at, as Alanah says. That curve always looks exactly the same. All you're basically doing is like resizing it in Y based on like how successful the game is. So those data points you're like, there's no way that curve's going to end up being smooth and proper like we expect. And then every single time it always is. And it's like,
so your constants grow, and then you just add in new variables.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So there's certain expectations you can have as a developer, and there are certain truisms. Some of them are more true than others. Like there's definitely as we said last time on the episode, there's certain numbers that you can predict with wish listing, for example, and those numbers always working exactly as you expect them to. And then other things always track exactly as you expect. There's some stats that are varied by multiples. So there is a certain, I don't want to go into specifics, sorry, but there are certain numbers that developers know of, like, oh, if you do X amount of units in your first day, then you can expect this many units in your first week, this in your first month, this in your first year.
I was going to ask that. That is a truism. It's like, if day one is really good, do you worry about the long game, or is it just that it will be consistent?
At my scale, no, because bluntly, there are always going to be more people who've never fucking heard of me. Like that's like from a mathematical point of view, I'm sure that comes into it with like.
Really?
I've been trying to figure out who
sorry,
this guy is.
Troy Troy knocked me off track.
What do you do here? Are you like a friend of Alanah?
What are you like? Are you a coder or what? Like what?
He owns the company. Oh,
he owns the company. It's just they make everyone who works at the company change their surname.
I think my favorite.
It's ridiculous.
I think my favorite part of that was the tiny little bit of caramel sea salt on top of Troy pointing in the wrong direction again to be like, and who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it better.
Because he's over here to me. Hey, buddy, high five me. I have a question for you, Alanah. Yeah. Did it drive you, or to this day, does it still drive you crazy whenever you watch an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation? They call him Data.
No, that's actually preferable to me
name?
because then it's a name. Yeah. So Data and Data
Stupidest
are two
question
different
ever.
things.
Dada.
I
Do you remember-
appreciate you thinking of me.
Do you remember that classic line though with
Dada.
Doctor? What was her name that temporarily replaced Crusher?
Polanski.
Pulaski.
Hi.
Where
Shut up.
she goes, Data, come over here, or something like that, and he goes, it's Data, and she goes, Data, what's the difference? And he goes,
Yeah, I know you haven't
"One-
been on the show, but
one is my name, the other is not.
What about
Yeah, I love that.
what's her name? The other doctor who came on, and she was the original voice on the computer. You know that, right? Like
Marjol Barrett,
Marjol
Gene
Barrett.
Roddenberry's wife.
was the original voice, or she was that doctor, but
Pulaski was the voice of the computer?
isn't that right?
No, Pulaski. Are we
Am
talking
I
about Star Trek
conflating?
Next? So Star Trek Next Gen, the actress who played Beverly Crusher, who is
Gates
called
McFadden.
Gates McFadden. That's right. She got into like a disagreement with the producer, so for one season they removed her and replaced her with Dr. Pulaski, who was like this grumpy old, basically intentionally like Dr. McCoy style vibes, right? They
Exactly.
were going for
Total,
She was,
right?
of course, because it's TV, she was played by like a 40-year-old woman, but they made out that she was this old cranky doctor, and then that kind of didn't work, and Crusher came back. In the first series, yes, the actress Marjol Barrett, who was married to Gene Roddenberry, plays the ship's computer. Luoxana Troy, who's, oh my god, my brain is so full of this nonsense. Who's the
Luoxana
mother
Troy
of-
is the computer.
She's the computer, so that's
Yeah.
Marjol Barrett. And in the first season, she plays a doctor who I'm forgetting the name of, but that's who you're talking about, Troy.
That's what I'm talking
Original series, yeah.
about. But apparently, and did you know this, that Gates
I can't
McFadden
believe I wrote this.
came on and everyone called, hi, Cheryl, and that was her name. And then she decided, like season 2, she goes, I want you to call me Gates. And they were like,
Really?
what?
Because she's
Yeah.
a dancer, right? That was her background. She owns
She
a
was a
dance
choreographer according
Okay.
to Wikipedia. But I talked to somebody who was on the show, and they were like, it was the weirdest thing. It's all of a sudden we have to call, like, if you just showed up one day and you're like, I want you to call me Felmore, and be like, your name is Mike. Is like, my name is Felmore. Like,
I'm Googling because I'm pretty sure Gates McFadden like choreographed a massive movie franchise or massive movie musical that we're all forgetting. She's like a really accomplished choreographer as well.
aside from Patrick
I'm Googling
Stewart,
that.
I've met everybody on the deck of the Enterprise.
That's
I'm
dope.
so jealous of you.
Flex.
How did you collect them all? Conventions?
I
It's got one of
have-
those little balls. And,
I just show up to their house and I just need to meet you. That's the beauty of like, and it's one of the things I miss about cons is like being backstage. LeVar Burton was the last one, honestly, or oddly enough. I had a great time getting down with, going up to LeVar Burton was oddly emotional for me because I was like, dude, the impact that you've had has been like crazy, like on a generation. Not only
he's got the
Did
double
you-
whammy.
Gates McFadden did
Triple.
Labyrinth, by the
Well,
way.
you have
That's
to
what I was trying
include
think
Roots
of.
also, I suppose.
Labyrinth? No
Yeah.
way. The triple whammy for him was not only, reading Rainbow, and it's like, you taught me the importance of reading, but also being,
Boy, it's rainbows.
huh?
Nothing.
The importance of rainbows.
Don't worry about it.
I love how, Alanah, you're just permanently out of focus.
Yeah, it's right.
I've been
I'm with it.
censored.
But your background is tack sharp.
Not real.
My favorite one though was getting drunk with Marina Sirtis.
I think I've
at,
heard this story.
Yeah, DFW Airport, and turning her on to the fact that at that time there was a Admirals Club at DFW that you could smoke in. And she was like, I'm going to go outside and I'm off for a smoke. I was like, you can smoke in the Admirals Club. And she's like, oh, I don't have a membership. I'm
She's like, I'm only a counselor, so.
it's like, come with me. So she got to be in there as my guest. And we
That's
sat
pretty
down
cool.
and lit
That's
up
really
and
cool.
we had a couple cocktails.
Did you only ask her questions about playing Liara Tassoni's mother in Mass Effect 1?
I talked to her about gargoyles for damn sure.
Not quite the
What,
same.
what an opportunity missed. She's
You could have
matriarch.
also, you could have
she's
also done an
matriarch
HD
Benezia.
remake.
I didn't know she was Benezia. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's that's why I was when I first
Very
played that I was
interesting
like
character.
that's Deanna Troy.
No way.
She's one of the coolest people. She's this Cockney Tottenham Hotspur supporter, and she just
That's
goes
a big
on like
home.
this. It's just so great. She's
I really, my dream. Jonathan Frakes has the distinction of directing a movie that Jerry scored, and I've always wanted to hang with him and get a sense of like
He's
that
a cool
experience.
hang.
That's what
He's
I've
an
heard.
impressive fella as well. Like, he doesn't get enough credit for, like, he walked into a show, was like basically like the hot commander, right? And he left that show as like a director who could helm movies. He basically kind of went up to the bosses and basically demanded the opportunity to like, and then set in motion this thing where Star Trek became a school for directors. Basically, like if you look at like several of like the actors, if you look at Voyager in particular, most of the cast of that show are now just directing every TV show you watch. Like,
it started,
it's crazy.
and that started a trend specifically
right?
on UPN where you got to. It's a common thing now for actors on a show to direct an episode, and that started with that. And he didn't make any money until he started directing.
Oh, nice. Well, now you've done it.
Yeah, I've made it.
I think
less.
you look.
I don't know.
I think
Now-
it's
now
awesome.
Frakes
you're-
wouldn't
now-
stand for this.
Yes.
Now you're redacted for being
I know.
offensive.
I'm being censored for some reason. I don't know what
Yeah,
I've done.
exactly.
But geez,
Just
not
being
absolute
you
shit.
was. Yeah, that's awesome. I need you to get your royal flush though and get Sir Stu in there.
I gotta get Sir Stu. Yeah, everybody else.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet him one day.
Absolutely same. Absolutely same.
I got a
get him
biggity
on the
bounce.
show.
Oh, you do.
We should have him on the
Bounce.
show. That'd be our fifth square.
Yeah, let's make that happen.
And he'll be
The invite's
genuinely
there,
like,
Patrick.
who are you?
So
people?"
Patrick, the invite is there. If you want to join us,
Mike,
very
you're
welcome.
British.
swap me out. Swap me out for it.
No, I'm
We
just
must
saying
each
you know
other.
him.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
bring
say,
it
yeah,
in.
you must be neighbors or something.
surely.
I have been trying to like worm my way to accessing Sir Patrick Stewart for years, and I've failed. But if I ever succeed,
As
Troy,
a
you're in
proper
there.
Englishman,
I'll
do you have
cast
to
you in
refer?
another role in whatever
Yeah.
it is if I ever get him. And we'll
You know,
get
Patrick
you
Stewart
in
had
there.
this role originally, and
Yeah, he turned me down. So now
so now, and then also Jonathan Frakes. Oh, and by the way,
I've
also
worked my way down the list.
there was a crewman number 5 in an
Yeah,
episode
red
of
shirt.
season 3. He said no,
He
and
said
we're like,
no.
"Fuck
Greg
it,
Miller
let's get
said
Troy."
no.
Greg Miller
Greg
said no. He's above. Yeah, he's above you on the list now. 100%.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, until then, I'm gonna go on to my next job. That's not working
it.
for Mike Bithell.
Never again. It's a terrible idea.
Never again. One and done, right? Yeah, I get it.
Dude,
Are
John
you
Wick
gonna? Are
X
you
2.
planning? Are you planning your
John Wick
onslaught
XI.
of DLC now featuring secret new suits of cards and superpowers?
We are having all the conversations because when something like this happens, you have to
iOS?
like genuinely we're talking everything right now. I don't know. It's not that I'm being evasive. I genuinely don't know. Like it's one of those
Jesus
things
Christ
where
Superstar,
it's a
the
it's a great problem to have, but we have no idea what to do because we genuinely thought this thing would be a nice, mild, does its job, makes its money back, but it seems it's more than that. So we have to work out how to do that properly.
It's
Congrats,
very. I was able to play it for about an hour, and I do.
Before you got disgusted with
I was
it.
about to
so-
say, I loved another,
Yeah.
and I couldn't anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It
To be
was
fair,
All I could
I
stomach.
allotted
Yeah.
4 hours, and I made it about 1.
I just stared at a wall for 3 hours because I figured it
Yeah.
was better. See you
This
later,
is
Troy.
enough. Thank you.
It,
very
the sheer commitment to that like Tony Scott sort of over the top vibe is
Thank you for the Tony Scott. That is 100% what I was going for, and you're the first person to say it. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's 100%
well.
going for
I've
that.
seen a movie or two in my time.
Yeah.
It really is just so.
See you later, Troy. Troy's been trying to get out.
Oh
for a
no, I
second.
was saying 2 minutes,
Oh,
but I
okay.
do need to run. I was like, he's seen 2 minutes, 2 movies, 2 minutes. I don't know anymore.
I have no idea what's happening. No, it's just
have a great
it's fun
weekend.
how
Austin,
relentlessly
say goodbye.
committed. What?
Say goodbye, Austin.
You're kicking me out?
Bye.
No, I'm saying say goodbye, Austin. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.
Oh, what are you saying, Austin?
I don't even know. My brain just got completely like Men in Blacked by that. I cheers to you for a successful, just complete and total straight-faced commitment to that aesthetic where it doesn't like announce it as kind of a cutesy thing and then step back and be like, okay, let's not forget that it is in fact Solitaire. It's just like, nope, we're just gonna keep that the heat turned on at full power this whole time, and it's it's to me.
Well,
It makes it,
John Everest is doing a lot of the work with that. Like in terms of like he definitely is scoring it. Like it's a much more action-packed game than Solitaire.
undoubtedly, and I was analyzing the way in which the kind of progress through. My theory is that the number of cards placed in the center is the primary metric driving your music system.
Your theory has weight to it. Yes. I think you might be right.
You may be
yeah.
educated.
You maybe worked that out. Yeah. It's
but,
Hitman. It's just the Hitman thing of just rising the intensity as you get closer.
No, it's working great, and cheers to John as well, in particular for the main title especially is like, I was like, I can't remember the last time I've actually reached to turn down the volume on something before because it was just so like bah, 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 and I was like, you know what's funny is I think people are not going to realize that this is also a very funny game. Like it's like just for because it's just so, because the Tony Scott thing in this context is quite hilarious. But anyway, I look forward to hours 2, 3, and how long is the campaign in general? I think I made it. I think I'm like on mission.
There's so the rule of game development is you always have to pretend your game is shorter than it is, because there'll be someone who gets through it faster than whatever number you say. So the real answer to that question is like, it's about 4 hours, but I say 2 hours because that way no one can ever accuse me of lying.
So I appreciate that. Most go, it's about 20, which means it's about
I'm probably not
10,
meant
15.
to
9. Yeah.
No, it's usually the other way for us. We tend to roll down because we just know people will, because most people round up. Yeah, the audience definitely like halves any number you tell them, so we tend to say even smaller so that they're surprised by how much of it there is.
This is why I love the site howlongtobeat.com. It's
I know.
Like it's the best.
I haven't looked on that actually. That's probably got some stats at this point.
It should do. I was going to ask Mike, so you've had a very successful launched yesterday at the time of recording. What do you think is the recipe or the particular ingredients that made this a successful launch? What do you think it is about this game? Do you think COVID contributed? Is it the fact that Solitaire is so recognizable? Is it just the style was very appealing to people? Like, what do you think did it?
So I think definitely we're in a time where everyone's just like aching for content, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but like if I see a new movie I'm half interested in show up on like Netflix, I'm excited because like it's something new, right? So I think there is a bit of that. I think there's the times we are living in, but no, I think it's a combination of things. It's definitely the art and aesthetic of it is just people love the artwork. Jen did on the characters is fantastic. I think we did a good job with the UI and the graphic design and all that stuff. So it looks a lot more expensive than it is. Basically, it has. It's
also very funny
quality vibe.
To that end, I enjoy that one of the kind of unlockables is the color scheme. Like
that's massive. People loving that.
It's like, so funny. Genuinely... Like I put a lot of thought into that. Where I'm like, do I really want to stare at this color?
Because that's most of the content, right? Like it's. But that was just because I love that feature in the original Deus Ex, and just no one ever does it because it's actually real pain in the ass to make work. I forgot
about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's really annoyingly complex. Probably the most complicated bit of coding in the whole game is making those color schemes work. Really? Yeah, it's just a pain, absolute pain in the ass. But once I'd seen how cool it was, I had to then actually make it work.
But it's just funny that you make it a reward for the player. It's not like a thing you go into the menu and you go hunting like for graphics options or changing the gamma or whatever. It's literally like, congrats, you have the new color scheme.
Congrats, you've got a new color scheme. And that makes people value it more, which is really interesting. And we actually had to, like, in our messaging on Steam, make it clear that, like, this is not, there are no microtransactions. Like, this isn't us, like, upselling you stuff. Because we thought people might worry that was, like, what that was. I think the genius of the color scheme thing is an idea from my partner, Alexander, who he put in this, he suggested this try it button. So when you unlock it, you get like a little button that like lets you like on that screen try out the thing you've just unlocked, which wasn't there. Like it was just you have to literally go to settings each time to change it. And just by doing that try it button, it feels a thing. I've watched people stream the game and they've spent like 5 minutes like doing what you're saying of like umming and ahhing about, do I prefer this color palette to the one I've got and all this stuff. So that's cool. And then I think definitely like it definitely did well on social media. There were definitely a lot of like people with high follow accounts kind of talking about it and stuff like that. That's definitely helped kind of fuel the fire a little bit.
For the record,
Yeah, I
there
think-
are no stats yet on howlongtobeat.com.
Oh no,
The game has a page.
It may
The game has a page,
take
but
a
it just
week
says
or
there's
something.
not
It'll
enough
take a little
data.
while to populate. Yeah.
There's not enough data.
But it's but yeah, no, it just seems to have connected. I think the other thing that's really good for us, and it's a weird thing because players definitely want innovation. They want stuff that's original, which is cool, and that's something we do. But I think also what players often want as well is a consistency of not necessarily of the games you're making, but of the way you're behaving, I guess, as a developer. So what's helped with this is because we've made a couple of these short games before, people know what this is. So there's that kind of, it's really interesting looking at user reviews are incredible, and like on Steam and everything, like everything, the players are loving it because they know, okay, this is not a AAA game I'm playing. This is like a a $10 in this case kind of experience, or $10 with the launch discount. So they come at it from in that context, and I think because we've done a couple of these now, people know what to expect, and that frames it for them better. And I think as well, like a lot of older players or players who have like families and stuff, like the idea of a game that is like quite short and like
For sure.
but like hyper produced for like
It's something
3
that
hours,
excites
and
me
they can
now.
get out.
It was a short game. I'm
Yeah.
like, hell yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
same.
so I think that you're not alone. And what's interesting is I think that audience overlaps with an audience who also don't want something that's super high stress. And so the idea of like taking Solitaire, which is a game that's relatively chill, and then figuring out a way to add like those production values and
To make it very
razzmatazz
unchill.
and drama, basically make it unchill, like that seems to have worked for a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know. But the thing is with all these things, it's always just like 20 different things kind of, because I'm sure there's other things that people don't like that's putting them off, and those things probably, so it's always this kind of matrix of like likes and dislikes. The other thing we did that I think worked really well was the wish listing. That was the thing that was like, we were really annoying on social media about wish listing, and
You were. I've been
seems
meaning to
have
talk
really
to you about
worked.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've
It's
lost.
kind of-
I
it's kind of
imagine
hurting
I've
the
lost. I've
brand.
been shadow muted by several friends. I imagine, like I probably have lost friends over that wish listing, but like it worked.
Well, I guess
I
that's the
loved,
thing that you
uh,
learned previously that was necessary going into this game, and
Yeah.
this is going to be the most interview-like question I think I've ever asked anyone on the show. But what would you say is
Do
the
it.
thing that you learned making this game? Did you have some? Is there something that you have learned by making Solitaire Conspiracy? Is there a lesson to
I
take
think
with you?
So this is half. It's kind of half something we learned on previous ones, and one that we definitely learned on this, which is spend all the money on the screen. Like spend every penny. And this is what we did with this one. Was there's nothing, like everything is, all the budget of the game basically is spent on stuff the player can see or experience directly,
Interesting.
and that seems to have really
Subtext
worked.
noted for music.
So how do you mean? Oh, and music. Oh
Are
no,
you-
sorry.
are
Yeah,
you- are
seen
you-
and heard.
Implicitly,
John did it for free.
implicitly
Like, I
get
offered
the
him
cheapest
exposure.
music possible.
Doesn't not work.
It all belongs on screen.
Yes.
No, but it's true. Like genuinely, like the only like and money obviously equals time essentially in like any kind of creative thing like this. So effectively, this game was made by 3 people on the main. There were lots of brilliant, talented people who came in and did like a day or two's work. So like the actors and the localizers and all this stuff. But in terms of people who were there the whole time, it was me, the character artist who's getting all this amazing credit for the amazing art she drew. Saying drew always sounds really patronizing. All this amazing art she created lovingly with brilliant talent. And then of course
All
John
these
with the music.
pictures
So
that she dashed
Yeah.
off.
but the team was all built all about production value and all about getting that on screen. I think that's created something that is, and that's something that we can charge $10 for, and no one's really challenging us on the price because I think
Production
people do
values-
see the value there.
It's a fascinating thing. Like, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but I intentionally have a setup whenever I stream or even make YouTube videos that does not look professional, which is intentional. I use a green screen background. I don't care if it's fuzzy. My webcam right now is a bit out of focus. My lighting is not good. And the reason that I'm okay with that and I don't want a professional setup is so that people still are able to recognize this is not your job. So I am
Right.
by trade not a YouTuber or a streamer, and I want people to come into that content and be like, this is not something you're doing professionally. You do it in your spare time, and thus I have the expectation of, won't get mad at you if you don't do this every day. I won't get mad at you
That
if
makes
this
a lot of
doesn't look this
sense.
way. And it's, I think, worked out very, very well. Is just that the appearance of this is a professional YouTube channel would create an entirely different and impossible for me to meet demand for content, which is just a testament to how the appearance of something looks can actually influence dramatically what an audience wants from a certain kind of content. And I think that you've done the opposite, where you've made this game that is effectively Solitaire look hyper flashy, which can, you know, change the value or the amount that you charge or whatever else. Like, that stuff I find super interesting, but it's definitely very important. Getting
so what
looking fancy.
What is the next next one going to be, like mahjong or is next on the Bithel chopping block, like what's the Sudoku? Are you going to do like the epic Sudoku take next? Is that what's happening?
That's the joke, but like genuinely, like there is a part of me that's like, let's just do the entire Windows 3.11 like game collection.
Minesweeper, man.
Just massively
I love
Minesweeper.
Minesweeper.
Would be cool.
Fucking love Minesweeper.
I'd love to Minesweeper.
I actually also really loved your exchange with Rami, where it was like, for someone who has, how'd you phrase it? Like someone who has politely hated all of my games.
Rami has hated everything since Thomas Was Alone. He like we're good friends, but like he genuinely doesn't like my games. Like he liked Thomas Was Alone, and since then he's just been like I said, politely disliking everything I've done since. What is his the one where he was really into it? So that's exciting. That's fun.
Why do you think he? I mean, you're very different developers. His games have one foot very squarely in the traditions and almost the arcade realm of games. Like if you look at Nuclear Throne and Ridiculous Fishing and things like that, there's a reel of what was the what was the name of the plane? Luftrausers. Yeah, like those games feel very connected to kind of the history of gaming, whereas yours, I think almost this is probably the first one that has that quality. The rest are, I mean, the text-based adventures of the circular games, maybe. But
I think that might be it. Like I think I don't know Rami's taste, so he might disagree with me.
His taste falls into two categories:
I don't think
non-Bithel and then
non-Bithel,
everything else.
Good. Sorry, Bithel and good.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I think with a lot of my games, they emphasize the storytelling, and I think if you're not on board for the way I tell stories, you're probably not going to like those games so much,
fair.
right? So I think probably that's it, to put words in his mouth. And whereas I think with this game, like the game itself is compelling enough that I think even if you did hate the story in Solitaire Conspiracy, you're still getting a compelling mechanic, and it's an interesting twist on it. Hopefully, it seems to be like we've had user reviews and press reviews where they've genuinely hated the story but loved the gameplay. Like,
how did they
and that's interesting. Good. Yeah, I think we're mostly 8s. We got a couple of ones that did below that, so the Metacritic's further below. But like, it was mostly 8s, which honestly is where most of our games land, especially the shorts as well, because they're not gonna. We're never gonna make a short that like gets a 9. That's not.
You make effort to make sure you like read all of your reviews.
I don't read any of them until usually I'll read them like a couple of months after release.
Interesting.
Because at launch it's too emotional. At launch it's just I can't. If someone writes a 10 out of 10 for me, I'll read that. But anything below that, I'm too sensitive. I'm going to get bothered by it. Obviously there is stuff to learn in reviews, so I'll go back and check like once we've been out for a while. But yeah, you keep an eye on it, of course. But what's really neat is that so our Metacritic, need to double check, that's in the high 70s, I believe. That's going to wobble a bit though. And it probably will change by the time this comes out because we're still getting reviews coming in. Mm-hmm. The Steam store is like 90 something positive reviews from the users, so we're in a really good place. We're in like touch wood's a relatively standard place for us, which is like high 7s, low 8s in terms of press reviews, and like upwards from 90% with users. So that's where
honestly, congrats, Mike. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Job well done.
It's
really exciting.
Yeah.
Whew. Now we just have to work out what's next.
Yeah. I still vote.
Nah,
that
man,
you've
got Solitaire. Fuck you money now.
Take a fancy Sudoku. Personally, could you do Bejeweled, or that's probably too licensed? You're probably not allowed to take that one. But
that probably feels like it's owned by someone. Probably someone's patented the match 3 specifics there. Yeah.
I mean, do you guys remember when King.com tried to sue Stoic for trademark violation for the title The Banner Saga because they claimed they owned the word saga?
Yeah, absolutely absurd.
It was the best thing they could have ever done for the sales of the Banner
I heard
Saga.
that,
It was amazing.
Ubisoft game Immortals Phoenix Rising, which I have played, it's actually pretty fun. It's very Breath of the Wild-esque. Was originally called Gods and Monsters and had to change because of Monster Energy drink.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like,
I remember they announced
should verify
that
that
as
before
Gods and
saying
Monsters.
it. Apparently, that's why the title was changed. So, like, Immortals Phoenix Rising is not a great title. Like, I feel like I'm one of the very few people who's remembering that. Like, such a wild.
I would never have guessed that game was Breath of the Wildy from that title too. That title makes it sound very like ultra.
Immortals Phoenix Rising to me sounds like a mobile game. I don't know why that's a thing in my head. That just sounds like a
sounds like 3 different games at the same. It sounds like it's a bundle of God, you gotta get Immortal, you gotta get Phoenix, and Rising. I love that.
Well, and it's Phoenix spelled funny too.
Yes, it is because that's the name. Yeah, Fenyx. Yeah, it's nuts. I have to run, which is unfortunate because we've got a shorter episode today. But yeah, it's been just a whole week. But Mike, congrats on launching your video game.
Thank you.
I still have many more questions that I'm sure we can get into. I'm going to ask that you both watch the thing that just came out this morning of the PS5. Did you see that?
No.
Check it out. It's like the PS5 tear apart, I believe they're calling it.
Oh,
like showing all the
tear
parts
down
and stuff.
Yeah, it's a
remember when those were just diagrams on the spreadsheet?
I know. It's a really cool, aesthetically pleasing video.
Nice.
And it's interesting to watch, and certainly the most we've seen of the PS5 because I feel like they've been so much quieter than Microsoft too. Like I've got my Series X just right here with my little Seagate terabyte hard drive thing and got a controller over there. Anyway, yeah, totally check that out. We might be able to talk about that next week. But otherwise, thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Hooray.